There's 5 main pillars. The first is the Popdock is meant to be user-driven from a reporting standpoint. So a lot of the other reporting tools in the market involve some level of IT involvement, either installing the tool or even building the reports for the users to use. Popdock is really designed to be end-user-driven from the start, allowing the users to query their data, add or remove columns, sort and group their data. They can filter it, and they can even incorporate some light visualizations. We'll talk about where we fit into the visualization space in a little while. The next pillar is that there's no middleman when it comes to Popdock. So this is really meant to be an ad hoc reporting tool that is not using a data warehouse or any of those types of things. Once you've set up your connector and created a list, you just click on refresh and Skippy goes out to your data and gets it directly from the source. Okay, so we're not caching data. In fact, we never store your data at all, which is something we get asked quite often. We have somewhere around 50 out-of-the-box connectors for data, and that list is always growing all the time. I say somewhere around 50 because I used to say over 50, and then I looked and we were at 48, but it's around 50 right now. It is growing all the time. We're always adding new connectors to that. And on top of that, there is a user configurable REST connector, which means you can connect to pretty much anything on the internet nowadays. Any of the services online today worth their salt will have a REST API available for you to pull data from. Now, Popdock widgets, which we're going to be showing you in a little while, allow you to embed Popdock reports in whatever tool your users actually prefer to work in. So some of the examples include Dynamics 365 CRM, also Zendesk, and Microsoft Teams, which we'll take a look at examples of all of these again throughout. But it's not even just the cloud solutions that you can put your data into. You can actually embed in Microsoft GP, for example, and for all of the reasons we're about to go through. Now, not only can you pull the data from anywhere in real time and then present it anywhere, you can actually interact with it. And this goes way beyond the sorting and grouping and filtering that we talked about earlier. We've got actions. So users can open source data records from another solution. They can alter the data or even create data in a new system. They can actually navigate within the system they're already in. And over and above that, we've got details, which allow you to see contextual information related to the record that they've selected. So there's a whole lot of context and additional information you can put in a list. It's not just the list data itself. So with those 5 pillars in mind, I figured we'd start by talking about Popdock as a reporting tool. And the big thing to remember here when we talk about it as a reporting tool is the user-driven ad hoc query parts. So let's actually take a look at how the users would experience Popdock. When your users first log in, they do have the ability to create dashboards. Our CEO actually lives in a dashboard very much like this one. We very often joke, and I'm not sure how much of a joke it actually is, that he is our biggest user, and his number of refreshes per day outnumbers many, many, many of our smaller customers, and some of them combined. So he definitely eats our own dog food, as it were. So we do have the ability to have little dashboards like this one, but I also want to just show you how the lists work. So we've got list-driven data here. I can very quickly add columns as I need to. So if I add those 2 columns, you can see here it very quickly adds them and refreshes the data. If I realize I made a terrible mistake, I can come in here, simply uncheck those, and now my list is added. If I need things, maybe in a different order, maybe for whatever reason, I want to sort by phone number first. Here you can see it's easy enough to drag and drop. If I wanted to group, for example, maybe I want to add city in here. I want to add city, and then I wanted to group this by city. It's just a matter of dragging as well. So the whole experience is meant to be really intuitive, really drag and drop. I'm going to take city off of there just because I don't want anyone to yell at me for screwing up the demo environment later on. If you notice, there's no save button, so all of our changes just get made. Now, I also have the ability to filter my data. To add more filters, you just keep adding plus, plus, plus. And just to prove me out, you can see here, I can have many, many, many. Now I'm going to delete those because I don't actually need many, many in this case. My example is just my customer balance is greater than 50,000. Now, if I wanted to put a date range, for example, let me find a date here. I don't think this is a good one to show you dates on, but here you go. We've got created date. Now I could say that my created date is between a date range. Instead of putting fixed dates, I can use things like compare fields to say, everything between the start of this week and today. Okay, so show me all of my customers with a balance created within that date range. I'm not going to get anything because this is demo data and we haven't created any data this week, but just to show you that it can be done. We talked about favorites. I am in a favorite called collections list. I could very quickly switch to another favorite, for example, my Minnesota customers. Which comes up there, or I could very quickly switch back to my collections list. So your favorites can be shared throughout the organization. So I can create a favorite and save it with or share it with the entire sales team, for example, which we do internally at eOne as well. We have many, many, many shared favorites that we work from. Okay, lastly, let's talk about some of those details that I talked about before. For example, I'm going to select Alton Manufacturing here, and you can see here that I'm able to embed things like maps. So this is just calling out to Google Maps to embed an iframe. I can have light visualizations in here to see what my customers are buying. And this is while I'm on the phone with these customers. So if you remember, I called this a collections list. So I'm trying to give my collector as much information as they need while they're on the phone with this person. And I don't want to drive them to 3 or 4 other systems. We never want to have our person say, oh, just hold on a moment, let me switch to my CRM. That's what we want to focus on when we're selling this to our customers. One of the areas we want to focus on. Down here, for example, I've got all of my sales information. Now, one thing that I haven't made abundantly clear yet is this data doesn't have to come from the same system. I could select this customer and show you the open CRM opportunities or the tickets for that customer. We're going to see examples of each of those things as we kind of move through the rest of this presentation. So we are not single system reporting here. We are multi-system reporting. Last detail I want to show you in this list is if I right click, I can see all of those receivable transactions on another list entirely as a drill through. And notice this is only my Alton Manufacturing stuff. And I have information about this list, about this customer's outstanding balance. So I'm going to jump over to this other list here. Now, this is reading data from Zendesk. I like to show it because it pulls us out of the ERP CRM world that we all tend to live in. I find that we tend to be too focused on that. There's a much wider world out there with the internet of specific applications. So this is one that shows a REST connection, but it's also got some pretty cool actions on it. So I want to show you those as well. So you can see here, I've currently got it grouped by priority and status. And when I take a look maybe at my open status under urgent, I can see this information. I can see I've got comments over here that's kind of showing me the history of this ticket. Now, Zendesk, in case you guys don't know, is a online help desk solution. It's pretty solid, very widely used, but tickets and comments are obviously its bread and butter. Now, I can look at this and I can see the comments, but maybe I've got my own comment to add. So maybe I'm on the phone with the customer and they're wondering, and I don't necessarily have access to Zendesk, nor do I want to have to switch to log into Zendesk when this is where I'm looking. I can actually right click here and I can click on add a comment, for example, and I can say, hello TM group. Just by way of example, maybe I want to spell hello right because my OCD won't let me save it misspelled. I can go ahead and click save. Now, what we're doing here, just for the more technical people on the call, we're actually taking advantage of Zendesk's API, and we're sending through the ticket ID, which we have here in our data, and we're sending that comment into their API, and it's creating a comment for us. So now 1976 is the number. Remember that in case I forget. Now I can drill back down to that ticket, 1976. I did not forget. And if I scroll way to the bottom, here's our comment that we just created. So we actually pushed that data into Zendesk. We interacted with Zendesk without actually changing systems. If I do have access to that ticket, I could, for example, open that ticket in Zendesk. And now it's going to open up that ticket inside of Zendesk, and I could interact with it directly if I do have access to that system. You can see here, here's that comment that we just created. No, I am not Chris Hansen, unfortunately for you all, I guess, but we are using his login as part of the demo. Okay. So when we think about Popdock as a reporting tool, the next question is, I know what Popdock can do now, but where does it fit in my reporting tool belt? Like, especially with such a big market on reporting tools. If you think about reporting in kind of three major categories, where we've got financial reporting, management reporting. Financial is obviously your balance sheet, your P&L, stuff like that. Management reporting, I tend to define as more of that 10 to 50,000 foot view of your data. Tends to be aggregated, tends to be visual, and it's really used by decision makers versus my operational reporting, which is really designed to be either in the weeds or maybe up to that 10,000 foot level. The way I think about operational reporting is it answers all of the questions that my manager gets when they look at their management reports. Okay, so if I need to actually see what am I shipping today, or what actual items got sold last week, or any detailed information, that's where operational reports fit in. So based on what you saw and kind of based on what we've talked about, I really do think Popdock is one of the best operational reporting tools out there. It also fits into the management reporting category. It's not a financial reporting tool. I mentioned our CEO lives in here. He runs the whole business. It's not uncommon for me to get, 2 or 3 texts a day saying, "Hey, can you explain, what's happening?" Or we'll get a congratulations 10 minutes after a sale goes in because he happened to click on a refresh on his sales report, stuff like that. Within Popdock, you can create light visualizations, so we can make data pretty. We can group the data. We can report on it over periods of time. You can create summarized lists as well. Now you can see here that I've added a few of the other reporting tools you commonly encounter in our space. It's not a comprehensive list of tools, but I do feel like it's pretty representative. I feel like it really shows the different categories fairly well. And the thing to note in both operational and management reporting columns is that not looking to replace any of those other players that I added in there. I really think it's filling a gap that those other tools are leaving behind, especially when it comes to the interactivity of our data. And in many cases, we're actually working to enhance the other tools we're just trying to give you a simple way to source that data and access it from the entire business infrastructure. And more of our customers, that infrastructure is moving out into the internet. One thing I haven't mentioned yet is you can use Popdock, and many of our customers do, as a data source for Power BI and build really complex queries with no code, and then use those as data sources within other tools to make it even prettier. So let's take a look at Business Central, for example. We're going to show you how you can embed reports or Popdock lists using something called widgets. I'm going to show you in a bunch of spots. It might feel a little redundant. I'm not going to drag too much of it out, but I just want to show you how many places we can take that Popdock and make it shine. All right, so here on my main home screen in Business Central, you can see I've got my normal Power BI part, but I've also got a little visualization here, which if I click on refresh, you will see is a Popdock widget. Okay, so it's a chart here. I'm going to switch it back to a list. Now you can see all of that underlying data, which is something you can't do here. And I can, for example, right click on that, and I could open the customer or go to the salesperson record. So I can actually interact with this data right here in the screen. Now that's kind of a cheesy example, so let's go see a couple of better ones. For example, if I go to my customers, I'm going to hit Giordano's. You see these guys come up a fair bit. They're my favorite demo account. Okay, and let's go take a look at their invoices. And I want to look at, we'll say this invoice. So if you notice over here on the right-hand side for this invoice, I have another Popdock widget embedded. So this first tab within my widget is showing me my CRM data. So I'm pulling my account information from CRM and I'm showing it here. Now, we like to show this because it shows an integration between CRM and Business Central, but imagine this was Stripe data for this customer, or imagine this was something from your ticketing system or something from your warehousing system, just extra data that doesn't currently live in Business Central, but is being displayed through Business Central. So while I'm showing CRM here, imagine anything else. Here's my Zendesk tickets for this account. So here's my information on this organization, and here's some outstanding tickets that I could, if I wanted to, read the comments on. So I can drill into and get information, or I could, just like I did before, add a comment or change the status or even delete the whole ticket. So I can interact with this data from Business Central without importing it to Business Central and without writing any code. So what we've done, we've got one big widget that gets added when you install the Popdock connector. See some charts of accounts and stuff like that. I believe there's about 50 that we create out of the box. And then you have the ability to add any published page or published query from Business Central. So you publish those through web services. Once you publish that as a web service, Popdock can use it as a list. Okay, so you have the ability to really take all of Business Central and put it into Popdock as a reporting solution, which is pretty cool. One thing we haven't mentioned that I will just quickly touch on is we do have the ability to pull in data from other systems here as well and combine it together. So I could combine ERP and CRM data, for example, into a single list. And we'll get into some of those details later on. I just really want to focus on the widgets for now. So if we go a little further, I'm over here in CRM now. I want to show you this guy right here. So again, I click on refresh, and what we're doing now is reaching into Business Central, and we're exposing invoices to our salesperson. So my salesperson who works and lives inside of CRM has all of this data, but I don't have to import it into CRM for them. I can expose that Business Central data right here on the screen. So here you can see what was on that particular invoice, and we can talk to that. We do have the ability to add actions here as well. And something we haven't talked about, we can actually kick off Power Automate or Smart Connect processes from here. For example, if I wanted to send a text message to the contact that's on this invoice, I could do that through Power Automate. Or if I wanted to kick off some kind of approval workflow, I could do that. If I wanted to, if this was a service ticket and I was ready to generate the invoice, I can right click and create and run my Smart Connect map that's actually going to create that invoice for me. So again, lots of opportunity to interact with this data, and I never have to leave the system I'm in. Just to show you those Zendesk tickets, because I like to show them everywhere and they stand outside of the ERP/CRM world. Notice here, I've got 3 tickets being displayed. So these are only the tickets for Giordano's. Okay, and again, I can right click and I can add that comment. Hello again. I can save that. And now if I come over here and I show you those comments, I forget which one I was on. Was it the first one? Here we go. Hello again. And I can see that comment there actually got created. So again, my salesperson can participate in the support process without ever having to go to Zendesk and consume a Zendesk license, and definitely without having to make their customer wait while they log into Zendesk and try to find that ticket. Last one I'll show you is within that Zendesk. First and foremost, here's that ticket that we just updated, the Schaumburg store. Notice here's my Hello TM group from earlier we talked about. But what I'm showing here is I've got CRM data now being embedded in a system that is not in the Microsoft stack. Okay, so imagine this as any website that can take an iframe or an embedded web address, and you can actually embed these Popdock widgets. So imagine a WooCommerce or a Magento 2 where I can show stock status without actually having to import the stock status every half hour and hope that the customer gets it as close to when it's real time as possible. Instead, I can just show them all of this data right here on the screen. We aren't talking about Smart Connect today. It's not our focus, but it is the integration tool that eOne has been historically known for. And when you think of it in relation to Popdock, we now have both sides of the integration coin handled. Okay, so we've got Smart Connects when the data needs to physically move, and Popdock when it just needs to be shared. So this scenario we see in many, many projects. I don't care what ERP you put on the left. I don't care what CRM you put on the right. In fact, it doesn't even have to be ERP and CRM. It can be any 2 systems you need to connect. There is data such as the customer/account that needs to be kept in sync because both of those records are master records and get used throughout both systems. But there's other things like the opportunities, or my favorite is the payment status on invoices, that would be good for the other system to be able to see, but serve no real business purpose other than to inform the end users. Now, historically, we either built really complex integrations to move that data, and in many cases, like the payment status, that actually involved also customizing the destination system, or we would just make the users work in both systems. And if the salesperson needed to know whether or not a payment was invoiced, or whether an invoice was paid, they would phone Betty over in billing, and she would tell them, yes, it's paid, or no, it's not. And it would consume everybody's day. By combining Smart Connect and Popdock, you don't really need to overbuild an integration. So think about this. I can use Smart Connect to move the data that needs to physically move, but Popdock to just show the data that needs to be shared. My salesperson can now see whether or not an invoice has been paid in Business Central without us having to build a customization and an integration, and without us having to, without them having to phone anybody, and without them having to leave CRM. They can just stay in CRM, right click, see the payment details.
Anybody got any questions?
Yeah, this is Doug. I know there's limitations with mapping multiple tables, wanting multiple links with Power BI, and maybe you kind of breezed through it and I didn't recognize it, but is it a lot easier in Popdock if I want to bring together job planning and the purchase table that I can make multiple links to those between those?
100%. And I did absolutely breeze over it. And so I don't blame you for having missed it. Let me show you real quick what our custom lists look like. So I'll use our Business Central connector here to show you, but this works from anywhere. So when we talk about lists, I did talk about the ability to add Business Central lists. We can add any page or any published query. Okay. So you talked about, there's kind of two things that you talked about there. And I think one I'm actually just inferring, and that's efficiency. Sometimes with Business Central, I need to join 3 or 4 or 10 pages to really get the query I want. We have had some cases where even our performance hurts. It's not really our performance, it's Business Central's performance in getting us that data and joining it, especially when we have many. But we can use published queries. So if you did an extension that did those joins, for example, we could use that within Popdock and then do other joins from there. So there's a number of scenarios is what I'm trying to say here. But once I've added, I think you mentioned both jobs and customers, I'll say. Okay. Once I have those lists available to me, now I can use custom lists, which are down here, okay, to do a number of things. So you're most directly talking about a join list there. So if I was joining jobs to customers, I can do that here. So I can join, 2 or more lists together to get single records, kind of like a traditional SQL join.
Okay.
I also have the ability to merge. So in Business Central in particular, we've got posted sales invoices and we've got posted sales credit memos, but we don't have posted sales transactions anywhere. Okay. So I can use a merge list to bring together posted sales transactions, posted invoices and credit memos to create posted sales transactions. Okay. And we've got a couple others here. The big one that I want to point out is compare lists. When I do integrations, quite often my customers need what I call a policing report. So they need to prove that the integrations did or didn't work. So I can use a compare list to show them all of the records that are in list A that either are or are not in list B. So if I'm building an integration, we'll say customers from GP to BC, just for lack of a better example, I can build a list that shows me all my customers that are in GP that are not in BC. So I can see any failures, stuff like that. So I've got quite a bit of ability here to do this. It's all visual and it's all way more efficient than Power BI or Excel.
If we have a situation where we have some users that are non-Business Central users, they don't have a Business Central license, can they still access Business Central through Popdock? Can they still access the BC data through Popdock?
They can absolutely get their BC data even without being users.